Hey guys, it is Faisal here for what may be the final video of the course, here to talk to you guys about some things as we wrap things up. So, the things you should be doing right now is finishing your essay, which is due tomorrow, Wednesday at midnight, and not a moment later, right? So go finish that essay. Uh, I posted a video on Friday that I think really does go through the structure and everything like that, right? This is for Friday's class, right? This whole video about essay structure and tips. If you haven't looked at that video yet, or if you haven't looked at the example essay, right, which you can find in the same post from Friday, then you should go look at that, right? Because I think that video and that example lays out the way I want these essays written pretty much as best as I can do, right? So I don't really have anything to add other than what I've got about the essay structure and all of that stuff right there, right? So if you haven't, go watch that video and make sure your essay is in good shape, right? Because if you don't have that in there, then that's a problem. Okay, so I wanted to talk about something else today, right? Just get away from Othello for a bit, and talk about university and college life. Now, I know a lot of you are not going to be hitting university until maybe January of this year or September of next year, right? And you know, that's fine. But I wanted to just give you guys some information that you need to know about some of the systems that are in place in many universities, right? Including the University of Toronto and other of big universities here in Ontario and in Canada in general, and indeed all over North America, because this is a common practice. And that is the idea of bell curve grading. So, this, I know it's an English class, but I'm going to show you a graph. This is a bell curve, right? And it's called a bell curve because, you know, it kind of looks like a bell. So, the idea of bell curve grading, right? And it varies from course to course. Not all of the bell curves will look exactly like this. But bell curve grading is the idea that the average of any course should be around something within the range of 68% to 71%. So the average of a course, right up here at the top, the class average should be about 68 or 71%, somewhere around there. And your class should be distributed roughly like this, where most people are getting a C, right? A couple of people are getting a D, a few people are failing, some get B, and a couple of people get A's, right? So if we were to go by this chart, right, and this is just one of many charts, right? So it's not always exactly like this, but if we went by this chart, let's say we had 100 students, right? Of those 100 students, 68 should be getting a C, right? Let me make this nice and big. So 68 of the students, right, 34 should be getting a C. 34 C minus, 34 C plus. 14 should get a D. 14 should get a B. 2 should get an A, and 2 should get an F, right? So many universities are have a sort of bell curve policy, right, where the distribution of their grades needs to look something like this, right? Sometimes it's not so extreme, right? Sometimes it's, you know, you get to play around with it, but many universities maintain this as a sort of standard, right? And you might see a problem with this already, right? Because you might be thinking, okay, you have 100 students, uh, 68 get a C, 14 D, 14 B, 2 B A, 2 F. Wait, hang on. What if 5 of the students are really smart? They're super genius, 5 students, all from different schools, but they came to this university and they're just really good at math, or they're really good at English, or they're really good at, biology, right? Shouldn't they all get A's? Well, this is where things start to get a little awkward. Because if a professor deviates from it, right, and they're in a course where, let's say, let me make this bigger, let's say they are supposed to give, put that here, they're supposed to give 2 A's, right, and they are only allowed to give 4. Well, what happens is, at least at many universities like the U of T, and by the way, I know this because my elder sister is a professor at the University of Toronto, so she would know. So if a professor deviates from it, they have to provide an explanation to their department head. So what that means is uh, if the professor is not able to follow the bell curve, right? If their grades are like over there, right? There are a bunch of A's, or indeed if there are a lot of F's, right? They're failing half their class, right? Then they have to provide an explanation to the dean, or not to the dean, to the department head, right? Saying, well, what's going on in your course? Did you not plan this course properly? So essentially, the professor would get into a little trouble if they don't if they hand in marks to the universities with that problem. And indeed, my sibling uh, did run into that situation where she wanted to give 8 A's and she was only allowed to give 5, right? And 3 people essentially had to lose their A, right, out of that situation. So this might make you ask a question. Like, okay, put yourself in that professor's shoes. If there are 4 people who are getting an A, and you're only allowed to give 2 A's, right? Your boss is saying, nope, only 2 A's, right? Out of those 4. So who's going to get an A? Uh, So the answer to that is not going to make anyone happy, right? I'm sorry to say this. And by the way, before I go on, know that I am not doing this, right? You could all get A's or you could all fail, right? And I don't have to follow a bell curve, right? So I am not doing this, just so you know. This is a university and college thing. It is not the case in high schools. Nevertheless, who gets an A? If you're only allowed 2, and you want to give 4? Well, the answer is what you'd expect, right? So first, yes, the ones who are the very, very best are the ones who can expect to get an A, first of all, right? That's the reality there. But you'll also have A's given, well, let's say, you got 4 people, they're all equal, right? They all did well on tests, all did well on essays, all did well on labs or whatever it is. Then yes, it does, and I hate to say it, go to the people that the professor knows and likes. Remember the class I mentioned that the class was of 100 students, right? That would be a small class by the standards of a university uh, in the first year, right? You can expect classes that are really, really big, at least when there's no pandemic, right? You can expect a class of 1,000 people, 1,500, right? There you can literally see a full theater of students, right? So often the professor doesn't actually know anyone, right? And so often, if they're having to make these kinds of decisions, right, they are making those decisions based on who they know and who they don't know. And yes, it does include the idea of who does the professor like most. Mm. So, I am not saying that you need to kiss up to your professors. That is not the message I am trying to send to you here, that you need to bring your professors coffee and all of that stuff. But this is a reality of university life. right? It is something that, quite frankly, I wish I had known. Because I can tell you, throughout my university career, right, my grades, right, if you were to look at my transcript, right, Faisal's transcript, university transcript, right, is going to be two things. There's going to be B plus and A minus, right? B plus being 78%, and A minus being usually around 80 to 83%. Right? Those are the grades I usually got, right? So I was usually up there, but not usually getting 90s, right? No one gets 90s, or very few people get 90s in university. So that's what my university transcript looks like, right? If I would look at it right now, that's what you would see. Those two numbers a lot. And I wonder how many times when I was at university was I, one of four people. And I can tell you, right, I in university was a very different person because I was very shy. I never talked to my professors, right? I would sit in the back, I would take notes, I would study very, very hard, right? But I would never actually go up and talk to the professor. I'd never go into office hours and, say, hey, this is what I want to do. I would just do my work, hand it in, and that's it, right? And I always bounced between 78 and 80. And I wonder how many times did I end up over here because the professor had to make a decision. Okay, I've got 4 A's. I can only give 2. Well, I don't even know who this Faisal guy is, so whatever. He can get a B, and I'll give the A to those 2 people that come to my office all the times. I don't know, right? So I don't know what you guys should really do with this information, right? Because ultimately, what I don't want you to do is start like go into university and think, okay, I've got to bring the professor coffee every day, and I've got to carry their bags, and I've got to do this, I've got to do that. But networking, right, and being known to an instructor is very important in the university setting. The bell curve, by the way, can work for you, right? If you're doing really badly in a course, the bell curve is actually your best friend, right? Because if you're getting a D, right, and it's a really hard course, right, you can go up to a C. And indeed, right, if you're doing okay, right, you're getting a B in a course where everyone is failing, right, you could find yourself in an A by the same token, right? So the bell curve doesn't always work against you, but it does exist, right? And professors do grade on this thing often, but when they don't like to, right? Often they'll want to give more A's or they'll want to mark more generously, but for their own sake, they have to stick to this chart, right? And it's a chart that, they that could significantly harm you in the future. So this is part of the Canadian system. I don't like it myself. I would never ever grade on that chart, right? So don't think for a second, oh, he changed my grade from A to B because of the bell curve. That is not something that I worry about. No one's going to talk to me about any bell curves. This is not a thing in high school, but in the university level, this is a thing, right? And it can be fairly brutal, right? And it's can be demoralizing. And one thing besides that you should be prepared for is you should know that the first year of university, right, particularly in the science subjects, right, chemistry, biology, math, right, any subject where you're in a very competitive program, right, so that would include, medicine, right? Or it would include engineering, right? Or anything like that where a lot of people are doing it, right? The bell curve is going to be hammered down pretty hard, right? In the first year or two of your university, because what they are trying to do, especially at the bigger universities like U of T, right, is they are trying to get rid of people that, quite frankly, they don't think make the cut, right? They're trying to get rid of kids who, copied off of someone else's notes throughout their, chemistry class and don't really have what it takes, right? So the first year, uh, it is the sort of weeding year, especially at the more competitive programs, right? So quite frankly, in the first year, uh, they want to get rid of people that aren't good enough, right? And they want to get rid of people that aren't serious about the program or anything like that. And that's where we come to the good news, right? Because, uh, it's not all bad going into university. I know some of you might be terrified based on what I said, so I'm sorry about that, right? But when it comes to the adult advantage, right, this is one thing to not discount, right? Because here's the thing, most of your peers in university are going to be around 18 to 22 years old, right? Meaning that they are kids, right? So for a lot of them, oh yeah, don't get me wrong. Some of them are going to be laser focused, really studying hard, everything like that, right? But there are a lot of them that are going there to drink, party, and have relationships. Let's just say, right? Depending on which school you go to, that can vary, but there's always going to be a chunk of the students that are like that, right? And those are the ones that are going to not do well, right? Those are the ones who are going to find it extremely difficult, right? And the adult advantage is maturity. Students that fail out of university, at least the ones I have known, and I've known quite a bit, usually have a few things in trouble. The first is a drinking problem. The second is a relationship problem, and the third is some sort of drug problem, right? Or some sort of problem with their parents, right? Those are the usual causes of a university catastrophe, at least in my experience, right? And you guys, as adult students, right? No one is in my class just because, right? No one forced you to come to adult school. No one is forcing you to go to university, right? You guys know your own goals and what you want from life, right? And that puts you at an enormous advantage over your fellow students in going into college and university who are on the younger side, right? I mean, I know some of you actually might actually be between 18 and 22 years old now that I think of it, but same message goes to you guys if so. Uh, Maturity and knowing your goals is the key to success in universities. All right, so that is another thing I would say about that. University is a great experience, right? And I don't want you guys to come away from this scared, terrified, or anything like that, right? University is an enormous opportunity. You get to meet the smartest people you'll ever meet in your entire life by going to university, right? And it's a fantastic time, right? So I don't want anyone to think, oh, I shouldn't go to university based on this. But there are things and there are systems in place that you should be aware of, especially the bell curve, that will make it easier for you to get through it. University is definitely not a walk in the park, right? You will have to work hard. You will have to, read a lot. You'll have to practice a lot. You'll have to do a ton of homework, right? And sometimes the professors will be great. Sometimes the professors will be idiots, right? And, you'll go through all of that, right? But it is worthwhile in the end. Anyway, so I wanted to say something about that. So, going back to the course, what you guys should be doing is finishing your essays, right? And they are due tomorrow night at midnight, right? So make sure you finish. Our Q&A session will be today at 2 o'clock, just like usual, right? So come in and ask me questions. If you want to ask about the bell curve or anything about university, you can, right? But come on down and I will be happy to look at things, answer questions, and everything like that. And yeah, for now we can finish up there. And I hope the essays are going well, and I will see you all next time.